Have you ever been comfortable but compromised? That's what I'm going to talk about today with the Creativity Cure, episode 1. Hi, I am Bethany Joy, and I'm the owner of Bethany J Photography. I'm also a designer, and welcome to the Creativity Cure podcast. I am here to talk to women, to teach you, to share with you how you can cultivate creativity in your life and how you can use creative thinking to improve everything from your business to your relationships to yourself. I already mentioned this before, but creative thinking is a skill, and there is a way to do it. There's a way that it's taught. There's a way to learn it. And I think everybody could kind of use some of these things anywhere in their life, not just trying to be creative, not just trying to make things, but to problem solve. That's really what it comes down to. So this is the first episode, and it's a big deal because I just announced a rebrand of my business, Bethany J Photography. For a long time, I did family photography, which I love, but I'm shifting to do something that's a little closer to where I'm at in life right now. So I'm shifting towards what I call fine art photography. And part of that is I want to let people into how I think, because I think as I go towards collaborating with people more, I want them to understand where I come from. So that's what the Creativity Cure podcast is about, is just sharing how an artist thinks and hopefully giving you practical steps to apply some of these tools in your own life. So today I want to talk about celebrating your originality. I promise that this will tie back into being creative. But the reason I want to talk about celebrating your originality is because for a while I've always been creative and used all my skills, but I delayed doing what I needed to do, right? I sat in being comfortable because I was afraid that if I was really who I was, if I really did what I thought I should do, people wouldn't like me, people wouldn't accept it, or that I would lose things that I had built over the years. But the truth is that there's just not really a better way to live than to really own the fact that you are original, you're unique. You have your own character, you have your own purpose, and sometimes it's hard to stand out, but sometimes the best thing you can do is stand out. So that's why today we're going to talk about celebrating originality and how I got here. I'm looking at my notes because I've never done this before. So here we go. Let's see. So I started Bethany J Photography years ago, and I've been blogging about it, but I started when I was 15, and I had some amazing teachers who taught me how to use the tools of photography, design. We're talking Photoshop, we're talking DSLRs, we're talking video editing. So I did that for years. I still do that, obviously, but I did that for years. And I would say about a year ago or a little while ago, I came to a point where I maybe felt like I hadn't grown as a photographer in the way I would want to. And so I had something life-changing happen. I had my daughter, Sinai, and I am so proud of her and I love her so much. And she changed so much for me because I thought about who she's watching, which is me, right? Like, she's watching me as she grows up. And what I do is what she's going to do. She's going to model her thinking after me. And that changed my thinking completely, because before I would really go back and forth with, oh, maybe I should do this, but I don't want to upset people. And I would question myself a lot. And so I didn't really like being decisive. I still struggle with it. And so I would just do everything under the sun design wise. And about, over the course of a year, I came to the conclusion that I can't do everything well. And that's a hard truth to sit with. Like, I cannot do everything well. So I had to accept the fact that you need to narrow down what you actually love to do and focus on it, because you only have so much energy and you only have so much time. And so that's what I began to do. I started narrowing down my business, my life, and everything, and started just taking the time to think about, who are you? What do you actually want to spend your time doing? Like you. Not what do other people want you to do, not what do you think people would like you to do, but like, what do you want to do? So I realized that by not showing up as myself, I was compromising my boundaries. I was compromising my quality of work. I was compromising my standards. And it really wasn't going to be good for anybody for me to keep living like that. So, I forgot that there was a me, right, who loved taking her time. There was a me who loved getting into just the play zone, as I like to call it. Like, I like just working hard at a project and getting into that zone where I'm kind of messing with things and figuring them out. And I hadn't done that in such a long time because I was really just in production mode and just like, let's create things, get them done, and keep going. And I think I had let some things that were important to me fall to the side because of this. So the reason I became comfortable in compromise was because I was believing little lies. I told myself I couldn't change. I had to accept all of the, I had to accept, you've been doing things this way for a long time, so you need to keep doing them that way. That's how I thought. People don't really want you to change, or that's too new for you to try. Just stay in your lane. And that kid, 10 years ago, who was just into exploring creatively, kind of like became scared, and I just wanted to do what was expected of me. And so I believed that I couldn't change, and that's where I kind of found myself stuck. So I don't know if you've ever felt stuck because you want to get outside of your lane, you don't really know how, so you just stay where you're at, and you're comfortable. You're not doing bad, but you're not doing as well as you could be. So that's where I was. So I want to ask you a question to ask yourself. How many times in your life has someone said something that shook your confidence, that made you question what you were going to do? How many times have you kind of just faltered from where you were supposed to go because, things are good enough, So I believe that creativity really starts with understanding that you're an individual who has something to contribute and offer. You're not a problem to be solved. You're not, a goal to be achieved. You're a person. You're a person whose opinions, ideas, and methods might be very different than someone else's. And sometimes you might struggle to understand that those differences can be your strengths. And I know for me, everybody probably has been in that position where they're like, I just want to fit in. I just want to do what's expected, collect my check or whatever, and go home. And it's a comfortable place to be, but for me, it just wasn't giving life. Like, it wasn't bringing me joy anymore. And I felt like things that I used to enjoy were starting to become things that I didn't enjoy because of the way I was thinking. And so just ask yourself, has someone ever said something that made you think I used to be really good at that, but, I don't know if I am anymore, or I'm just not that, I can't change. I can't do anything different, So I want to encourage you to lean into the discomfort and lean into what makes you you, what makes you original, what makes you unique. Celebrate the fact that you're the one and only you. I don't want to kind of just make this podcast, just me kind of talking, and then you just leave and you're like, oh yeah, that was really good to think about. I actually want to give you things you can practically do to actually do what it is I'm saying you should do. So to start, if you're like, hey, I really don't see myself as creative, or I kind of feel like I've lost who I used to be, how can I get back to kind of reawakening that creative side of myself? Here are some ideas I think that would really help you to do that. So I'm going to read this little list here. The first one I have is ask people what they notice about you. Write it down and keep a running list. The first time I asked somebody, hey, could you give me feedback on what it is you think I'm good at, it really was, it really like warmed my heart and made me smile, because if you're asking somebody who cares about you, they're going to give you good feedback. And even if they have, suggestions on how to improve, they're going to do it with love. And so feedback is one of the best ways to kind of reintroduce yourself to you. Ask people what they think. See what it is they like about you, and write it down and look at it, because sometimes we just forget. And I know for me, I need to write things down to remember why it is that I do what I do. Second, journal your joy. Journal your joy. When you love doing something, maybe it's decorating your house or planning a party, pay attention and then journal it. Write it down. You'll notice that I say write a lot, because that has been a big help for me. But write down what you enjoy, like what encourages you. What do you like to do? Don't worry about it being productive or impressive. Like, what do you enjoy? Sometimes that's a good indicator of the area that you might want to grow if you're trying to reintroduce creativity in your life. Revisit your childhood. I did this recently, and this was really fun, but I looked back at things that I used to do as a kid, and revisiting my childhood was funny because, sometimes you cringe a little bit, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I forgot that I really liked this. I forgot that I used to just like love Vogue fashion ads. I have always had, I've loved lighting since forever. So I used to really look at that. I used to love music. Like, I just like dancing and listening to it. And so it just kind of can almost like loosen up that old muscle. If you open up your mind and start going back, you might bring back memories, and you'd be surprised how just rehearsing those things will free you up now as an adult to re-engage the creative part of yourself. Finally, I want you to play. Play, seriously. Having a 1-year-old and just getting on the floor with her sometimes and being silly has really, I don't know, life can get hard and really heavy. And sometimes you just need to laugh and loosen up a bit to get your mind back to the idea of impossibilities, right? So here's the thing about being a human. This might be confusing, but see if you can follow me. In order for us to achieve goals, we kind of have to see them. Maybe not visually in our head, but even just the thought. We have to think about it before we do it. So, before you go to do your job, right, you have to have an idea of how your morning goes. You get up and you have your routine. So I believe that applies with creativity. We have to be able to see the possibilities and dream. And that's really hard to do if you've come to a place in your life, maybe because of disappointments or because of responsibilities, where you're like, I'm not even going to think of trying to do that because it's just impossible right now. So if you can't see it in your mind, you're not going to be able to create it in your real life. So I think play, which is just uninhibited exploration, right, is going to help you to start believing again and to start dreaming again. And so if you want to get back into being creative and to pulling out what makes you original, start playing. For me, I like to sometimes mess around with web design and just play with ideas that I might have. You can try drawing or coloring. You can try movement. Some people are more into movement. You can take things that are conventional and turn them upside down. Now, don't do this at Thanksgiving, but mess around with a recipe. Do something you don't normally do to tell your brain, hey, you have permission to think differently. You have permission to step outside the lines. So that's what I would say. Give your brain permission to play. Hey, we're just here to create. This isn't about accomplishing. This isn't about perfection. Nobody has to see it. It's just about freeing your brain up. So I think if you do those 4 things, I'm going to read it off. Let's see. So ask people what they notice you do well. Journal your joy. Revisit your childhood and play. I think you're going to find creativity starting to come back into your life more. And if life is hard, you'd be surprised how a little creativity can just bring you joy, because, I believe that we're created to be creative. And one of the most powerful things you have is your mind. One of the most powerful things you have is your ability to think. I'm going to leave you with that. Give yourself permission to enjoy the journey that you're in right now. And hopefully this week you'll take some time to be creative, however it is you want to do that. So that's it for today. This was my first episode. Woo! And I'll be here every other Friday talking about how we can use creative thinking to improve our lives. You can find me at Bethany J Photography on Instagram and Facebook and on YouTube if you want to watch this podcast instead of listen. You can also find me on all streaming platforms, as well as BethanyJphotography.com. Oh, and there's Sinai now, so I gotta go. All right, bye.